Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Tarnished Bronze, where Patrick and I are going to make our master consensus list of comic excellence, or the MCLCE awards here.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah.
OLT.
So, uh, so we've done 20 sort of sagas together here. There's a few little side special issues that are also on the channel, but we're not going to include those. This is going to be the core of Patrick and Matt's tarnished interests. So that includes just the Interstitial Avengers, Invasion, some of the classic Chris Claremont X-Men, a smattering of Justice League of America, and some other odds and sods. So, um, Patrick, we are gonna have go. We're gonna do like a countdown, like the Billboard Top 20, and I'm just gonna say my number 20 to number 16, and then you're gonna say your number 20 to number 16. Then we'll do a little bit of horse trading, I think, is to see what actually is the worst of the worst for
Okay.
Tarnished Bronze. So number 20 for me was Avengers 301 to 303. And to me, that is the most interstitial of the interstitial of Avengers.
Ooh, I'm gonna call that to question for sure about being the most interstitial of the interstitials. But yeah, you may
Okay.
be right.
All right. Well, the defense will rest, and we're pretty comfortable with our case on that. But one slot above that is Avengers 299 to 300, which is for a whole bunch of different reasons, something which I didn't think was quite so great. And then instead of being just not good, a missed opportunity at number 18 is the Marina saga. Did I say that right?
Marina, yeah.
Even though it includes like meeting Trump at a party and
You
some
usually call her Mary. Mary.
yeah, so in
This
order
may be
to
the first time you've ever gotten her name right
yeah,
is when you're trashing her comic, but
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So this is I can see
I'm
this
surprised that that's okay, I think that's kind of low. Wow.
yeah.
All right.
We'll get into that. Number 17 is a joke that just went on for too long. So that is going to be Ambush Bug 1 to 4. And then at number 16, I have issue 314. I think that's the Batman issue.
315.
315. That's
Yeah,
the
Kite Man didn't do it for you.
yeah, just I'm not a kite freak. I'm not actually, you know how someone says, why don't you just go fly a kite?
Yeah, yeah,
One
yeah.
day I did that. It is really fun. But
I want to tell you that we've never discussed this, but when I was a kid, they they went through this time when they gave kites away with Meow Mix, and we had a cat, an indoor cat when I was growing up. So we had these cool kites, but the problem with kites, in my opinion, is it's either not windy enough to fly a kite, and it's just not a thing, or it is windy, but it's too windy to fly a kite. It feels like you're never in that sweet spot of kite flying. So I don't know how Kite Man got around that, but that's another episode.
it
But
seems like we
okay,
need another spin-off on this show called Kite Chat, where we just
all the
discuss.
hot goss about the kites. Okay, so my 20 should come as no surprise to anyone. I would like to say that I consider us very good friends and we agree on so many things. But it's funny that this is probably the thing. Well, I mean, there are other things that we're very into that have in common. But this is obviously one of them. But it's also sort of the area where we our tastes really differ the most. Right? Don't you
Yeah,
think?
yeah.
I mean, I definitely think in doing this, I've noticed that even more. I was always aware of that, and there have definitely been things that we've recommended to each other that we both liked. But the way we read comic books and the things we get out of them, and sort of where our focus goes, and which I think hopefully maybe makes the conversation better. I think hopefully, I don't know. That'll be for everyone else to decide, but it's part of why
You heard
I
it
enjoy
here.
it.
Tarnished friendship on
Yes,
Tarnished
there you go.
Bronze.
No, but I mean, there are definitely ones where after talking to you, I'm like, oh, I see the virtue in this comic that I didn't see as much before. So, anyway. That's just my little plug before completely disagreeing with you. No, my number 20 was also one of your low five, and it was the ambush bug stocking stuffer. Again, I mentioned on that episode, I'm not 100% sure that it didn't have something to do with ambush bug fatigue
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
reading the four miniseries issues and then immediately following with the 40-page stocking stuffer. But yeah, my stocking was stuffed by that point. I was really done with it. So that's my 20. And 19 right behind it is just the ambush bug 1 through 4. I really like Keith Giffen, but anybody who's watched these episodes knows I'm not really big on comic relief and cringe jokes. There were some inside jokes that I thought were funny, but as I said, it was thin gruel for me, and 4 issues of 20 some pages was just a lot. So that was my 19. My 18 was Invasion 3, another one where I just really didn't have much patience for it. It felt like a slog. It was a very long read. Um, it had some potential to have some good cameos, but I felt like they were kind of wasted, which sort of annoyed me a little bit.
The reason why Invasion is split up, by the way, is they may as well be three different sagas, especially
And
with all the recaps at the start. It's just they are almost standalone.
yeah, and you know what? Now that I say that, I'm going to make a slight change. Because now, as soon as I said Invasion 3, I thought, Invasion 3 did have that kind of cool moment where, wasn't it John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, goes and infiltrates the Dominion to get the antidote? I actually like that little vignette. So I'm going to make a slight switch. So I'm going to say my 18 is Invasion 2, which was the worst invasion.
Controversial choice, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I think that what I did was when I ranked them, I just kept them in order. So I was like, they both sucked. I'm putting them down here. But I actually think 2 was worse. And then for the next one, I'll put Invasion 3, which I think was slightly better for me than Invasion 2, if only because it was over.
Yeah,
So that kind of
yeah.
makes it better. Uh, Although it did have all those sick superheroes and that never went anywhere. That was kind of lame. I just didn't like it. Anyway, my 16 is Avengers 298, one of your favorites, and what I would consider the most interstitial of the interstitial Avengers. The saga of Jarvis as the last Avenger. Didn't really appreciate it. Don't like the phone cords coming alive, Captain America saving the day, the middle-aged woman who's in love with the elderly man. It didn't do it for me. So
Okay.
those were my five.
Okay, so what we might do is we might do now 15 to 11. So then we'll have some, I think our top 10 will be pretty similar. So then we can have some that we can slip and slide and get this bottom 10 to some sort of
Cemented,
consensus at
yeah.
least. And then at least have a criteria that we can both kind of agree to disagree on to rank those. So from number 15 for me is the stocking stuffer, and I can see how I split the vote. So if I redid this like as of last week, maybe I would think that I think Ambush Bug 1 to 4 was sort of funnier and stocking stuffer had the better art. So I could argue both way. I just didn't want to have my two ambush bugs and Keith Giffens in the bottom slots. So that was part of my little
So
quandary.
you have the stocking stuffer is 15.
Yeah, but I could be tempted now to swap my ambush bug priority list and move the stocking stuffer right down because the story is definitely going nowhere.
Where did you have 1 through 4?
1 through 4 was 17 because I actually
Okay,
felt
got it.
something happened and so on and so forth.
Okay,
And so we'll get into that as we discuss our
okay.
our overall order. So that's number 15. For number 14, I had Invasion number 3. So that's the tacked on end, which would have been great as just a solo effort. It just seems lost in the shuffle and the downgrade from McFarlane and Giffen to Bart Sears, who I really liked, by the way. just didn't fit the story. I felt that this was a human story, an infiltration story, kind of like if Invasion is the Cosmic Avengers, this was like the street level stuff, and it just seemed a mismatch to me. And then number 13 for me is 294 to 297. So that's a story arc that I did like that kind of went nowhere, but it was
Hmm.
like a spectacular folly. It did look really cool. That Kane stuff is amazing. And then number 12 is going to be controversial choice. So I want to be absolutely clear that I am talking about classic X-Men 1 as presented in classic X-Men
Mm.
1. Now, do you understand, Patrick? Like this is the
Yeah, but when you sent the list, you did say Classic X-Men 1, but I sort of rated it as if it were giant size X-Men 1.
we can do a little special where maybe we'll have 21 in our initial list because if we're talking about giant size one, that's like far even how much I like the tacked on extra story, the presentation of the original issue
I will
dwindles
say
in my
this. I'm actually not sure. I think I would have rated it the same. I'm not, no spoilers. I'm not going to tell you
okay.
where I put it. Not that low. But I think regardless of which one, I think mine would probably stay in the same place.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's something that we can chat about later. And
Interesting.
then number 11 is Justice League of America Annual number 1.
Oh,
So
oh,
that's so
hurts.
so well that so this is where nostalgia and all of
Mm.
these the
The
cultural
art is
cachet
so, for
like
me and my taste, the art in that one, it's Homan, right? Wasn't that
yeah,
him?
yeah.
Hoberg.
Hoberg,
Hoberg.
yeah.
Uh, just the art is so great in that one for me. Just because I love that clean style, that comic book kind of
So so
DC
I
brand.
think just from the things that I haven't included on this list, 10 years is a long time in comics as far as art styles, not art quality, but just art style. And that I think is indicated on what is left in somewhere in my top 10 that you may have already like be flagging as number 15 or 16 in your list, Patrick. So what
Maybe
did you
okay.
have from 15?
Let's see. So 15 is Batman 315. Also not a big fan of kites. We would have never read that if that hadn't been my first Batman comic.
Okay.
I'm not a huge fan of Batman, as people who have listened know. Hate away, it's fine. I don't care. I mean, I like him in group settings, but as a solo character, he doesn't draw my interest. He doesn't have powers, and I'm just a kid at heart. So I like to see people zap things or read minds. So, I'm very simple. I'm just a simple boy from
Yeah.
Appalachia. So, that's my 15. 14 is Avengers Nova, the Supernova Saga 301 to
There's nothing
303.
super about that saga.
No, the only reason I ranked it higher than my very lowest was because there were a lot of cameos. It was a little bit of a space story. It was interesting to hear about the Nova Corps. It was just a litany of missed opportunities,
Okay. Yeah.
which we agreed about. But the fact that there were some opportunities there as a kid and even as an adult now, that would draw my attention a little bit more than just cringe-worthy dad jokes. So that, or nothing happening except a guy who flies kites robbing a bank. So even though I agree
When
there
you
are,
say it like that, that kite story sounds amazing.
I mean, I guess, yeah, sort of. We can make anything look good on this channel. So okay, that was 14. 13 is yeah, just nudging out the Supernova story is the worst Avengers crossover with the Fantastic Four of all time. Avengers 299 to 300. Just with the messy demons and the demon nest and the Gilgamesh, it just didn't do it for me at all. Um, so what was that? 13?
Yeah, so you're on 12 now.
12 is
These this
Invasion.
this this could still be a good like we're arguing about different things, I think. So it's not that these are necessarily terrible comics. Like the There's a
Yeah,
lot.
like I
Yeah.
said, even hey, you know what? The numbers don't lie. People get if you don't like your ranking, then you do better. Like that's all.
Yeah.
You go back to the drawing board and you work. That's it. So so wait, 15, 14, 13, 12. Did I say my 12 is is that what I'm on?
Yeah.
Invasion 1. Again, the reason that it got as high as it did, I didn't love the story, but I did like the exposition on the different alien races, what they were like. The setup of the story. I think I said when we did it, the setup was great. The delivery maybe kind of petered off in the end, but I did like the first one a lot better than 2 and 3. Um, how many do I have left?
You've just got one left, number 11 for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my number 11 is also controversial. It will be for you. And probably, yeah, I'm gonna get some hate online. But you know that it was not my favorite, even though it is very highly esteemed and it's Uncanny X-Men 186, Life Death.
All right,
I
and
didn't
you've
hate it.
seen you guys will see the life death of Tarnished Bronze on this channel as we go. So to cut a long story short, my bottom is Avengers 301, 303, Avengers 299, 300, 291, 293, of which 291, 293 is actually well crafted and stuff. It just is dull for me. Ambush Bug, Batman 315, Stocking Stuffer, Invasion, and then 294 to 297. And my on the cusp of the top 10 was Classic X-Men 1 and then the JLA annual one. And so just seeing the overlap here, we both have the ambush bugs, we both have Invasion 3, we both have Batman 315. So that's one, two, three, four. We both have 301, 303. So that's we both have 299 and 308. So that's one, two, three, four. There's six that we have as overlap, which isn't too bad.
That's pretty good.
Um,
It's over half.
so just for the sake of drama, will we reveal all of these and then argue, or do you want to argue like the bottom five now?
Um, let's do the ones we have different, right?
Okay. All
So the
right.
four that we disagreed on, right?
All right,
So,
so the consensus could be I am happy to put as number 20 the stocking stuffer because even though, like I said, this is not a poorly crafted comic as far as the art, it's just a joke that is spread too thin.
oh yeah,
So
that's it. I think the six that we agree on, those should be the bottom six.
yeah, so that stocking stuffer ambush bug is number 20. Now, what my argument for Avengers 301 to 303 being so terrible is the fact that it's tedious and it means nothing. And so, sure, the art is kind of cool. I love some of that, the kind of comedy that you get with the over and undersized people. Like, I like Hawkeye. Everyone, for a change, seems to be acting in character.
Mm.
Um, there's nothing wrong with it, but I believe it's what the Generation Z calls mid. Like, it doesn't
It's
mean
mid.
anything. I don't have any, like, if this doesn't exist in the world, the Avengers is still going to happen. And I know this is a dumb thing to say about serialized fiction, but it's a fill-in and it's a fill-in that is meaningless as opposed to a character-driven fill-in.
What's
Patrick, your thoughts?
interesting is we had so many fill-ins to get to 300, and then we got to 300 and we went back to the fill-ins.
Yeah, yeah.
Why? But you're right. You're right. Like I said, I think I gave too much away when I mentioned it. But the only reason I was a little bit more positive on it was, we've got a new character. He's kind of got an somewhat interesting power set. We've got the cameo of the West Coast Avengers. Nobody's really used to their fullest potential, but I was like. It was to me it was less tedious to read than the invasion. Which invasion did you have on the bottom? Three.
My worst invasion, or the one that I dislike, is number three, mostly because it seems tacked on. It would have
And
been
you're right.
better as I could do the what's the Dominator virus or whatever, the metavirus. I could have done with a metavirus miniseries. Like it seemed that there just was it was a bit of it's a misfire,
Mm.
Patrick. And maybe some art subject matter um, disruption, even though that black and white series in the Phantom Zone is amazing art. So that's one of the things where I actually thought not bad, just less than the sum of its parts.
Hmm.
So I could argue that I'm pretty comfortable in saying that I like the art in Invasion 3 better than I like the art in 301 to 303. And the ideas in Invasion 3 are better than the ideas
Mm.
in Invasion 301 to, sorry, in Avengers 301 to 303. It's just not executed because they're two different formats. One is this 80-page massive thing. And I even forgot about the John Johns thing. That was lost in this
Yeah, I was gonna say
quagmire.
I think I like the art style of Supernova better than what ended up being an Invasion
Rich
overall,
Rich
Invasion 3.
Buckler is very
But
good.
what you said, he- I mean, you throw enough spaghetti against the wall, something's going to stick, right? So, like you said, I think the main point is Invasion 3 had more and better ideas. Whether or not they were executed their full potential, Supernova had the opportunity for not as many good ideas, but they still could have made it amazing. It could have been a great melee with all the teams, and who knows what could happen. But none of that happened. So yeah, I would give you that. I would say I think Invasion 3 can be ranked higher than Avengers Supernova. Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's fair.
And so my one little thing on that too is we have this cosmic character, and what are they doing? They're in New York and they're just like that to that to me just seems sort of silly. Like
Well, and then they also had that exposition where they explained in excruciating detail how they were gonna fly back in Sue Storm's force field and just like I like it when comic books have some realism, but we can take this too far, right? I mean, we don't need all of the explanation of why they're not burning up in the atmosphere, and yeah, it was
I
yeah,
can live without that stuff. And so I'm gonna do now 18. I don't want to have Keith, my main man, 19 and 20. So then I'm happy to put Ambush Bug 1 to 4 as 18.
yeah, it
Patrick.
was pretty weak.
And
Sorry.
then I can live with fighting the good fight to preserve the honor of either Invasion 1 or Invasion 2, but we'll put Invasion 3 at the consensus 17, which you have as higher than Invasion 2, but that is,
But Invasion 2 just had so much of the recap.
but it has
You know,
KG
it's been a
doing,
while since we read it too. So I originally had two above three.
yeah,
Here's what I think. I actually think what do we have so far? We have Stocking Stuffer, then
301, 303.
Supernova,
Yeah,
huh?
yes.
Stocking Stuffer, Supernova, Ambush Bug. I think, even though it goes against my rankings, I think the next worst one is Batman 315.
Okay, well, you almost sold me on if someone just wrote a short story about a fella with a kite in
Named Ben Franklin.
yeah, robbing banks, like I think I could get that into the New Yorker, like but add
My favorite thing
Batman.
about that comic is Kite Man's uh costume.
Oh, I like the Selena Kyle
The
Desperate Housewife.
Housewife's glass throw. Also, the cape hanging out the back of the Batmobile was
It's just so
excellent.
good.
I love that.
But I don't think I can support a whole comic book industry based on Desperate
Three.
Housewives offcuts and having a cape in a convertible. So
Yeah.
we'll put Batman 3. This won't be the last issue that Batman is in, but it might be the last sort of like cusp of the Silver Age issue that we do with Batman. So just to have it there, 720 uh, Stocking Stuffer, 19 Supernova, 18 Ambush Bug 1 to 4, 17, Batman 315. Not a bad comic of its time, kind of gimmicky, a hangover from the Silver Age. Number 16, then, is this where we're going to have Invasion 3, the thing that didn't quite manifest.
I think if only because one of the other ones that we share that we're going to have to get to is the Avengers 299 to 300.
Okay.
And I think we give it a higher ranking if only because of the talking egg nanny and the orphan maker. Those are kind of interesting characters. They weren't brought to their full fruition, but we both liked that. The armor was cool.
Oh,
You
like I
know,
said, I love that character in sort of modern day X-Men, and I mean modern day. It might be 3 or 4 years old already, but they had legs, those characters, which is
mm,
crazy when you just look at what they look like.
yeah. Yeah, that is crazy. I didn't know they had ever come back. Plus, I love the little scene with Gilgamesh. I think there was promise to that character until he put the bullhead on. So, yeah, I just really didn't enjoy Invasion. Like you said, I think your argument of there are a lot of good ideas. I think that, but also there were a lot of gimmicky ideas that just seemed. I do agree that three seems a complete tack on. It seemed like it could have ended with two. Then they added this whole new thing. Um, it was sort of schizophrenic with the different superheroes that I'd never seen or heard about before or since, with their powers going haywire, and yeah, I just didn't enjoy it much. So I'd almost put the what we're coining the worst Fantastic Four Avengers crossover of all time ahead of Invasion 3. Yeah.
Okay. That so that's a reasonable consensus. 299 to so right now we've got, just for the dear listeners, our six sort of misfires, if you will, are Avengers 299 to 300, which is just some poor characterization and some bizarre story choices and some weird characters. Invasion number 3 is number 16. It was just a missed opportunity for different reasons than some of the other things. Number 17 is Batman 315, which doesn't is less than the sum of its amazing gimmicks. 18 is Ambush Bug 1 to 4, which if we had a 2 issue special would probably be much higher here, and all the tennis references included would have just like probably in the top 5. And then the Supernova Saga, which is neither a saga nor super as far as I'm concerned. Just it was the interstitial piece of the interstitial Avengers. And 3 issues to boot, Patrick. Just very bizarre choices.
The
Um,
most fill-in of the fill-ins. Yeah,
and
I don't know why it was three issues, but it's because we spent half an issue explaining how they were surviving an explosion in space and getting back to the planet. So
yeah,
yeah, it
just
was
uh,
missed opportunity.
yeah, yeah.
I
So
also, in defense of the Batman comic, even though I agree with where it was, I think the other thing that we should also say about it is that it's not really a comic that's meant to stand on its own. I mean, in a way, it is, right? It's just one of those where it's at that time, that kind of comic needs to be sold. It has to have sort of a villain. It needs to have some sort of plot, but it's really meant to be read in the overarching Batman series at that time. So it's a little hard to judge it when you compare it to something like Invasion, which was this huge crossover event that was, 60 pages without ads or whatever it was.
80, I think. I think,
Sorry, yeah.
yeah, no, I think in that
I
first
mean, it
issue,
was a lot.
yeah, Todd McFarlane is doing 120 pages that month. So without further ado, I also think that that Batman issue has Lucius Fox and his son. You know, if we were reading that saga, maybe the whole saga of, say, the 300s through to the 320s would be quite high because we get a coherent thing. But
Exactly.
as it is, that was kind of like a we need a throwaway villain. And the Selena Kyle that Selena Kyle subplot is still has legs in 2025. So who are we to say that this was not well executed, because we are living on the relics of some of those issues. So, Patrick, maybe now is a good time to get into 10 to 6 and then see how many double ups we have.
Exactly, so that we can then argue about the four that we have left to
So,
rank. Yeah.
number 10 for me is Invasion 2. And so I could see myself getting talked out of this just because, once again, it's a bit of a misfire. Number 9 for me is Avengers 298. It was a ray of fresh air in an otherwise like middling, editorially conflicted run. Number eight,
This is the heavy metal.
no, no, so yeah, number 9 is 298. The number 9 for me is 298, the Avengers with Jarvis
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
and
yeah.
Cap with his broken ankle. Um,
Exactly. No, okay, okay. Yeah, I had it on a different page. I got it. Okay.
eight is heavy metal,
Mm-hmm.
and 7 is the Substitute Heroes special, and 6 is the JLA annual number 2. And I'm shocked that that is so high. And that is a very new read for me, by the way.
I'm
Like
shocked that it's so low.
I really liked it. And it's low because I think there are just a couple of comics in my, or one comic in particular in my top five that's just not your cup of tea because of story-based reasons leading into it rather than story-based reasons in the story. And I think we've sort of discussed this when we did that episode. Like, so Patrick, I hopefully you caught all of that. So it's in
I did.
Invasion 2, 298, Heavy Metal, Subs, and then Justice League of America annual number 2 is then that one that's just outside my top five. But remember, this is a pretty fluid thing. So some comics I might rate as 9 out of 10. They're just not necessarily my favorite.
Mm.
Um,
Now for my I have my section 10 through 6 is very Avengers heavy.
okay,
So
yeah.
my 10 is the Marina Saga. That again wasn't my favorite run, but for me was, stuff happened. I like that period of the Avengers. Moving on to 9 is where I put heavy metal. So this is the immediately preceding story.
Yeah.
And 8, I have Cross Time Kangs, which I agree
Oh,
with the lack of payoff, but maybe because I read most of that story, if not all of it, when I was younger, there may be some nostalgia there. I didn't feel like it maybe was all that it could have been, and I definitely agree that it seemed like the Cross Time Kangs was going to be a continuing theme, and that we were going to come back to that. So that was a super missed opportunity. I hate Dr. Druid, and so that was kind of a thorn in, or a fly in the ointment, in reading those. But to me, at least I'm having a reaction to it,
oh
right?
yeah,
It's
no.
making me
So
want to.
that's it's the total opposite of to me 301 to 303. And that is also why I don't rate the Marina saga as high because I'm just like, I don't give a shit about this person. Like, it's sad that they became a big fish, but like, I'm sad. What's that thing when like a CEO says, "Oh, I have gratitude for the work that you do, but I couldn't care less about your raise." That's
Yes,
kind of
exactly.
what I feel.
But you're fired.
Yeah.
So 10, 9, 8. So my 7. Which I really, really like this story, but the only reason is just because I had 6
Others are
that I
better.
liked
Yeah.
better was Superman Red Glass. Very
Okay.
impressed with that story. I love the cameos. I did think I don't know necessarily that it needed to be 3 issues. So it kind of felt a little spread out, but I really,
Yeah.
really liked it. And in fact, when I was rating it, I really did pause on it because I was like, "Oh, you really enjoyed that." But I just felt like my 6 above that were a little bit stronger for me.
Yeah.
And then my 6 is the Legion of Substitute special. And it is very goofy and filled with Giffen humor. But you know, it has the Legion of Substitute Heroes. So it has that. For me, going forward, it's a space saga. It's got these cameos by Pulsar Stargrave and you know, the other villains that, you know, villainous rejects of the Legion of Substitute Heroes. So yeah,
Okay.
I like that one.
So I think there's only three that we don't overlap with. So that's Invasion 1, Uncanny 186, and Red Glass. So that's not too bad, and that might just be indicative of like the era that we grew up in, where I obviously like those image guys, whereas to you the image guys are, oh, they're displacing like Perez and Byrne and so on in the pantheon, and the age is just wrong for you to maybe get jazzed by that stuff. Um,
Well, and also Red Glass was your first Superman story, right? And whereas Legion, the substitute special, although it is also in your group here, but
yeah.
like that one as an example is one that I read when I was a kid. So, I mean, there's definitely some of that at play as well, for sure.
Yeah, so I can be convinced that I can put some of my at least one of my Avengers up higher. Um, I think we both are pretty low energy on the Marina saga, just because it is three issues of kind of like kicking out someone who we don't like, which is kind of a bit of a waste when you've got these Kane things that are bubbling along in the background. So I think, Patrick, do you want to deal with the Avengers first? We can just see.
Yeah,
So
I would argue very strong that of the ones that we have on here, no, you love the Jarvis story, but I
yeah,
really feel that despite its limitations, that the Cross Time Kangs span is the best of the ones we've read.
okay. Yeah, I can
I just
understand.
feel like Heavy Metal is more of a kid's story. I mean,
Okay.
I thought it was good too. I feel like those two are close,
I
but for
guess
me,
I guess if you spend 3 pages drawing exquisite pictures of trucks sliding, like
no chairs.
yeah, yeah. So I will admit I'm sad that Simonson and Tom Palmer and John Buscema never got to do the cross time Kang cacophony that the setup deserved, but it's not their fault. And I shouldn't hold that against the cross time Kang saga itself. So
And
I
you
will,
had good things. You had Nebula
yeah,
infiltrating these
yeah.
incels and stealing their technology, and there were stakes. We thought maybe Kang had died. The Avengers were disbanded as silly in a way as it seemed that how did you break the Avengers? But in a way, it did
There's
make
there's
sense.
some beautiful pop art in that. There's some beautiful sci-fi stuff. Like it's got all of that, the the stuff that I like as far as the art too. Just sort of a bit dated in, there's a lot of story to fit in. You had all these 6 panel grids. So I am happy to put heavy metal above 298, which was maybe more just a troll on my behalf for your sensibilities. And I mean, I almost
Heavy
think
Metal was good, and you liked it too.
I almost think that 298 is a special case of this is how you do a one-off issue. Like, don't do anything more than a character piece. And that is essentially what this is. It's a character piece on Java. So heavy metal I really like because I personally haven't read that much Avengers, and it does what it says on the tin. It's like crazy robot stuff, and we've got like a what is it, like a double reveal of the big
Yeah,
bad is
there
not the
were a lot
big
of
bad.
twists and reveals
Yeah.
that they dropped hints for. Now, that's the one reason why we do not have to do this because I know this is a step too far. But I actually would say that the Marina saga is better than the one off Jarvis if only because of the vignettes within it that contribute to the overall storyline that we're getting, right? So even though it's about her turning into a fish and trying to find a way to get rid of her, right? We had the poignancy of the
Oh,
nest,
sad Namor. There is nothing like more
sad
sad on this
Namor,
earth than.
And we
Sad
had
to
all
hear.
of the little that character interplay that I know you like and I do too, of setting up what the relationships were going forward, right? We already had the Dr. Druid having his strange
Sex dreams, yeah.
uh, diurnal dreams, and
At work, might I add.
at work. We had She-Hulk starting to get on to him. I think this was where Captain Marvel was basically dismissed from the series and undercut at every turn. So there were some things that happened besides that I thought sort of were pushing the plot forward. So even though I'm not a fan of Marina and the actual Leviathan itself, I thought that there were elements in that storyline that made it more interesting to me,
Okay, so
as opposed to fighting, a motorcycle that turns into a clunky looking robot with a cane. Come on.
yeah. So just to extricate us out of this a little bit, I'm gonna put Invasion 2 as number 14 because it's a diluted Todd McFarlane and it's a diluted Keith Giffen. And it shows that it's neither of them are at their best, but I just love the fact that they're in the same comic book, so that we're gonna just get that one out of the way, Patrick. So, and to be perfectly frank, the highs of Invasion 2 are far better than the striving but missing bits of Invasion number 3. So I
I
think
think
we
that's
can
fair.
just slot that in. Now we're just arguing the horse trading over where the Avengers lie and like what one is our favorite one. What I would like you to do on a spare weekend, Patrick, is photocopy all of these issues and cut them all down to about a 6 issue miniseries, and then we can review that.
And no, I'll remove all the ads and
Yeah,
put my little staples in the side. I have since found other comics that I have doctored in the same way. So
because
I think one of the future stories that's on our reading list. I can't remember which one, but when we get to it, I'm sure I'll recall. I was like, why does this comic have no ads? I was like, oh, I removed them.
and then we can spend 4 issues making our own special comic that would have the cross-time conflagration crescendo.
Yes,
We might have to draw that ourselves because, like, that's what that saga deserves, to be
I
perfectly
agree.
frank. So I can live actually with the cross-time saga ahead of heavy metal, which would be, in my mind, there's maybe some other comics that could insert, and then we're kind of trailing with the Marina and the 298. I just really like 298 as an individual comic. So let's maybe do, it probably doesn't deserve to be the top 10 though. So let's maybe put 13 as Avengers 298. Does that
Mhm.
does that make, so that
Yes,
was
I think that's
originally
fair.
16 on your issue, but probably because of frustrations with the where the Avengers was going. Like it just
Yeah,
seemed,
yeah. Well, and I don't buy the Avengers to see Jarvis riding the subway and wooing some middle-aged woman. Like yeah, that was a miss for me. No. But having said that, I also understand that life death cannot be where I ranked it. It has to in our sort of agreement, gentleman's agreement, it has to be higher. So I'm completely fine with it being ahead. I didn't enjoy it as much as Cross Time Kangs. I mean, and it's one issue compared to Cross Time Kangs is what? It's like
fine.
five,
Yeah, yeah.
four, five, six,
So
four.
maybe I'm also polluting that in the sense that nothing came of it, which has my distaste of the cross time saga polluting what is actually in front of my eyes rather than the
Mm-hmm.
actual issue. You have the reverse problem with 186, is like the preceding
I
stuff irritates the shit out of you, and yeah,
And even though it is good, it really is, and it's well written, and but I have the same feeling and I don't think it's necessarily fair, where I'm like, yeah, nothing happens.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you
Oh,
pretend
you
you
haven't.
fell in love with some man that you had no idea who he was, and then you hate him at the end. I'm like, okay, like whatever.
So,
Uh,
you haven't
but
read
but
that
it
many
is, I
Chris
mean,
Claremont issues then, have you, Patrick? Like,
say.
You haven't read many Chris Claremont issues then, have
Yeah,
you?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have many, 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 and that's what I'm saying. I know it's highly esteemed. It's just, I was definitely reading it from my sort of childlike point of view of having someone convalesce after an injury in bed and having a lot of word bubbles of talking. Yeah.
So
Let's
let's
move
so
on.
so let's
Where's the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants? You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
that's all.
yeah. So let's maybe circle back to 186. So we need to fill 12 and 11. Is 186 definitely outside your top 10 on this sort of revised issue? And also is Classic X-Men 1, which is going to be in your top 5 based on all of this. Do we want to split this off?
Okay, so here's my argument. I think, oh, also Red Glass we haven't covered, right?
Okay.
I think Red Glass with the mystery, with the cameos, with the stakes, with Superman going. I feel like Red Glass is stronger than Life Death. I just feel like it's a better story. There's more happening. There's just like you said, if Life Death was your first comic book ever.
Oh, that's it. That's what Tarnished Bronze is about, actually. If
And
this was the first one you
if you
read, you
weren't a
might.
very sophisticated teenager of maybe 16 or higher,
Yeah.
you would be like, screw this.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody can read. I had never read Red Glass. I read it as a 50-year-old and was like, oh wow, this is really good. And was surprised that I had never heard of it. I wanted to know how did you find out about this? So I feel like it's stronger. I mean, just to say. Now, here's the thing about Classic X-Men 1. If we're judging it as classic X-Men 1 and not giant size X-Men, then you have to pretend like giant size X-Men, you can't compare it to giant size X-Men and say it's not as good. Let's pretend like giant size X-Men doesn't exist.
Okay. So now we're getting into this thing where I'm going to read my top 5, and I think I've read my top 5 in the sense of my favorites as opposed to what I necessarily think of as the best. This
Okay.
consensus list seems like it's about being the best.
Okay.
So, whereas our favorite list is maybe exactly that, it's our favorite. So, I'll give you a good example. My favorite Radiohead album is Kid A. I also think it's the best. My favorite Pink Floyd album is Animals, but maybe it is not the best. The best one is probably Dark Side of the Moon. So, does that make sense, Patrick? Like, my
Hmm.
favorite is not necessarily the best
I feel
because,
like my favorites are always the best. I'm
okay,
just
well,
kidding.
yeah.
I'm
So,
joking.
maybe we need a whole Reddit thing to get
I'm
into this.
kidding.
So my 5
Okay.
coming in now is Invasion 1 is number 5, Red Glass is 4, Cool
Okay.
and Cool and Gath is 3,
Only three.
Universo is 2, and my favorite comic on this list is 186. But that doesn't mean that it's the best thing that has ever been put to a comic press.
I knew that 186 would be way higher on your list, but I did not necessarily expect it to be number one.
So what I'm trying to get with this consensus list is let's do your top 5, and then we'll
Okay.
maybe work down and horse trade a little bit in the middle
Okay.
where it might be a bit more straightforward.
My five is JLA annual number one.
Okay, I
It's
can,
a
yeah,
bit formulaic,
yeah.
but I love the art. I love the characters and the interplay. I think it's a good story, great villain. I love the concept.
Okay.
My four is Classic X-Men 1. Again, full disclosure, I was more like when we went back to read, I did read Classic X-Men 1, but what I did was I read the Giant Size X-Men and then I read the addendum in Classic X-Men
Oh,
1.
so you just
So
got
I
the,
saw what
yeah,
you wrote, but honestly, I think either one, because like I said, I would still judge it as in I'm not going to compare it to Giant Size X-Men. So I still have all of these characters introduced. I still have most of the art
the
being
major saga.
Cockrum,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is just excellent. So I think I'd still put it at what am I number four. My number three is JLA Annual number two.
Okay.
Again, I love the art. I think the new team is introduced spectacularly. I think it changes everything for the JLA. The new writing style is just completely different. It's got some comedy that I think fits in really well. I love the new treatment of Aquaman. I think the new characters are just amazingly interesting. In fact, when I reread that and we did the episode on it, I was like, this is even better than I
Oh
remembered.
yeah,
So
no,
I
I
love
liked it
that.
a lot. I like I
So
said
good.
after reading that, I did a deep dive and I'm starting to collect all those issues. So by the fact that it's number six doesn't mean like oh, it's more just I have to put something ahead.
No, because my number six I like too, so I get that.
Yeah,
Our number two, I don't know if we matched exactly on any, but our number two is an exact match. It
yeah.
was the Universo project. It hurt me to put it at number two because the Legion is always my favorite. But and it was great. I love that story. That's why I suggested it. But having said that, I don't think it's as good as number one, and my number one was Cool and Gath. And I think for me, even though I love the Universo project, I love Saturn Girl, I love the Legion, and I like the Legion more than X-Men, full disclosure. For me, it's not even close. Cool Gath was the only 10 out of 10 that I had. It was the only one I ranked as 10 points because I used a little point scale to try to help me figure out
Yeah.
because I took this very seriously. By far my favorite.
Okay.
When I read it, I just,
Let's
it's so amazing.
let's cut this story short. I split the difference with 186 and Cool Gath because I didn't want just two X-Men's in the top slots. So I'm happy for Cool and Gath to be number one. Johnny Romita
Okay.
Jr. is out of this world. Just there's a lot goes on. Like when you think that some of those invasion issues drag, and we have three issues of this supernova bullshit, like we only got two issues of Cool and Gath.
And we were like, and we both said, where's the trade paperback? Like, I want a full 180 page graphic novel, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm pretty happy to put the consensus so far as Cool and Gath as number one, and
Honestly,
Universe.
I feel like when we recorded it, I think it's the one we enjoyed the most too, to be
Yeah,
honest.
Universo Project as two. Um, Now that leaves maybe what was your number three then, Patrick?
Is Detroit.
Deep.
And I know
So
that's a tough sell over life, death, but God, it's so good.
so I'm happy just to also split the difference, and because we've got a few X-Men issues coming up, and maybe I have some Barry Windsor Smith coming up, I think for something. I'm happy to just go. I'm gonna leave 186 outside the top five because, like you said, no one is going to read another 187 based on reading only 186. Okay, so if we put that, it needs to be in the top 10 for me. So where
I
was
think
it
that's
for
fair.
you? It was number 11 for you. So if we
I think
move
it can
that,
go above the Legion special, the Legion of Substitute Heroes special. I would put it below Red Glass.
okay, so if we go, let's put so your number seven is Red Glass. I can put number seven as Red Glass too.
Okay.
Like Red Glass, I think though is gonna it did for me. I mean, if you read that first, you're gonna want to read another Superman comic. So number seven would be Red Glass.
And I'd be okay with the substitute special being below Red Glass.
So that would be number eight.
I think that's fair.
Okay, subs, because like that has a bit more in jokes, but it's just like less diluted than the ambush bug. So we still get our humor, we still get our Keith Giffen on here. Um, so that means that do we want to put one of the Avengers in the slot number six? Like, is that Avengers issue going to be on the slot number six? Because I could do some horse trading and put in the top five, like number five, the JLA Avengers 2, annual 2.
Oh, well, my question is, this is okay. So what do we have open and what do we have left?
So we have left, I think, Invasion 1, which is going to be. we put to well actually Invasion 1 and issue 186 of Uncanny are the two divergent ones for us. Um, so I'm thinking if we have the subs special at 8, I'm just debating over whether I want 9 or 10 to be Uncanny and Invasion, or Invasion and Uncanny. Or if you want one of them outside the top 10, we can just argue and put them at 10 and 11. I think because it's such a good comic book, I have to have 186 in the top 10.
That's fine.
Invasion is maybe a taste thing. So if Invasion number 1 sits at 11 and Uncanny sits at 9, and then we fill the Avengers in the gaps and the
And put Cross
JLA.
Kangs in the middle.
Well, maybe the Cross Canes, that's a number 6 slot that is going to be contentious.
Oh,
So,
whoa, whoa, whoa.
so I've got right now 12, 11, 10, 9, 6, 5, 4, 3. So going from top to bottom, Cool and Gath, Universo Project, there's three
Uh-huh.
gaps, then or four gaps, then Red Glass, then Sub Special, and then there's another four that we have to fill. So
Oh,
uh,
okay. Including
including Heavy Metal, Kane Special, Marina. I've got to have Invasion above Marina. So I am just going to make a decision where Invasion 1 is
Marina's
at
the
11.
bottom.
Invasion
Mm,
1 is at 11, Marina is at 12.
yeah, and that's the bottom two.
Yeah. So,
Then let's go. Next up is heavy metal, and we can put life death above it. How about that?
okay. So that would be, so Invasion number 1 is at 11 because I think as a kid you could reread and reread that and be satisfied.
Yes.
10 is Heavy Metal just because it of a fill-in issues, it has got to be one of the best fill-in runs if we just including fill-ins. Um, so that's Heavy Metal. So then we have number 8, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Yeah, so
So we're
eight I think
basically
should be eight. Eight was life death,
no 8, sorry, 9 is now 9
life,
is Life Death. 8
and we still have eight
subs
open.
8 is sub special, 7 is red glass, and we need to fit in the Kang special, which is going to be above red glass and the subs right now.
Mm, yeah, that I think even though it goes against my rankings, but it's weird, your ideas change. Yeah, actually think that's okay.
Okay, so the Kangs are
No,
going
I would be will. I think Legion. I think Cross Time Kangs and Red Glass. I could go either way. I think
yeah.
Cross Time Kangs, even though I had Red Glass above it, I honestly think that a little bit might have been out of respect for you because I know you really liked that story and I did too. But actually, now that we're talking about it more, I feel like Cross Time Kangs really because think of the characterization and the dropping of hints, and
It's the
it's
it's
really.
the it's the post facto Kangs that I'm disappointed with, not the
I
actual
agree.
thing. So that means that I'm happy to move JLA 1, sorry, JLA Annual 2 up into my top 5, which it was sitting at 6, and I think for you it sits at 4.
Three. I have
So,
it at three.
okay, so we
But
have
I could
5.
go with four. Here's the thing, excuse me, you had classic X-Men a little bit low.
Yeah, and now I'm thinking about it as like you could read comics for the rest of your life having read Classic or X-Men at the start, and I'm less disappointed in the breakage of it than I perhaps was when I was writing this. Like,
And I feel like it's hard to be like, I'm introducing the new X-Men, and then I have introducing the Detroit Justice League as being above that. So I actually think classic X-Men 1 should probably be number three. And then I would advocate for JLA Annual number 2 to be number four.
okay, and what's number 5?
All is it all we have? We have Annual 1 left.
Yeah, Annual 1 somehow crapped right up. So, um, I'm if we have Annual 1 at number 6 because it's a bit dated, like it is what it is. It's kind of everything that is that you could say about Batman 315, but just way more fun
Um,
and with better
what do
art.
we have? What do we have at five?
At five, we have nothing. So we have four,
We have
five,
five open, and what's at six?
six is the Kangs.
So let's move the Kangs up and then put the and then let's move the Kangs up. Let's move Red Glass up and then slide in annual one. How about that?
Okay, yeah, that's a good the consensus.
Yeah. Consensus. Yeah, because yeah, I think that's good because I do think part of it's sentimentality, but I mean, the dream characters and stuff were so cool. But it's a bit formulaic.
The
It's simple, but it's a great simple story.
and it's got the tentacles, so what young hentai enthusiast doesn't need that? And subs special 8 and life death are below that, and they do require specialist knowledge.
I think that's fair. Yes.
So then that means that 4 and 3, I'm going to just say Classic X-Men 1 is at number 4, to be perfectly frank, because JLI Detroit Part 1 or whatever is a revelation for me, whereas the Frankensteining of classic X-Men is just I love the Frankensteining, but it gets better as it gets better as it goes. So uh, I mean,
That's the way I had it, but I felt guilty in retrospect. But yeah, I think if we had giant size X-Men, then I would say for sure put it at least at three. And honestly, I'd go higher, but it's also, even though it's excellent, it's also of its time, right? It's still from 1975.
yeah,
So it's not gonna, even no matter how beautiful the art is and how great the characters are and how much they had legs, it's still a comic from 1975. For me, Universal Project is still better.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Even though it
Um,
has its flaws, it is like this isn't like a list of the world's best 10 crafted comics. This is kind of a list of this. Here's our favorite comics. If someone put a gun to my head, what one do I enjoy more?
exactly.
And then I also have to factor in like this other a-hole's opinion as well. So like
That's me.
so right now our 1 to 20, I'm going to read that out, and then
Okay.
as we do another episode, we're going to fit those new comics into our list, and that should be a little bit of fun for both of us to do this horse trading and
Yeah,
see
yeah, yeah.
where it lies. So without further ado, number one, Kulan Gath, the
Yeah.
Chris Claremont, John Romita Jr. X-Men, just tour de force. Number two, the Universo project, perhaps the Indian summer or the late apogee of the Levitt's Legion. It kind of like is not the same thing after this.
With
Uh,
Greg LaRocque.
yeah, yeah. Number three, JLA annual number two, which is the first part of the Detroit Justice League with some lingerie shots.
Of Zatanna.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally apropos of nothing. Number four is classic X-Men 1 slash giant size X-Men. We know that it becomes a behemoth after this, and this is still an enjoyable episode, but not not peak X-Men as far as I'm concerned, as the kids say. And I've been convinced at number five that the Cross Time King saga isn't as bad as what I remember it, or at least the saga itself isn't as bad. It goes off the rails bigly afterwards, but I shouldn't hold that against these issues. And so that I think was Avengers 294 to 297. The next one on our list is the red glass is number six. So just outside the top five is a Superman out of nowhere, Alan Moore-esque tale, which has a lot in it for the issues that are there. So that's Triangle Era, which is at the back end of our Tarnished Bronze viewpoint. Number seven is annual number two from the JLA, which is the classic Doctor Sleep with his or Doctor Death who can't sleep, or Doctor Sleep
Destiny.
who can't die. Um, and
A husk.
Sandman saves the day. So Patrick, that's got everything a young man wants. It's a that was a revelation to me as well. It just obviously doesn't lead into something massive, but
Yeah.
it's a great one and done. 40 pages that fly by. Number eight is the substitute special, and this is where your mileage may vary. This is like that intermediate Keith Giffen. So we haven't done the classic Darkness sagas. We haven't done those sort of classical 5 years later, where Keith Giffen just gets to do what he wants to the. This is like a middle thing, and it's a halfway house between something that's funny. Um, so this is if this is your first comic, it's probably very peculiar. So that's why it's at number 8. But it is once you get into the Legion, it's a very great story. Is that what you'd say, Patrick?
Yeah, but what do you have as 9?
9 is Life Death.
Okay. Okay.
And so once again, it requires a little bit of a priori knowledge, but if you can get over that barrier, it is exquisite.
Yeah.
Then number 10 is heavy metal, and that definitely to me has to be the finest fill-in run of a major series. It's great. Um,
It's fun.
Yeah, just super the fixer, the maniac. Number 11, and just jump in if you've got some sort of uh
Mhm.
disagreement. Number 11 is Invasion number 1, which has the 80 pages of undiluted Todd McFarlane and Keith Giffen doing Cosmic Crisis. It looks beautiful. There's a lot going on.
So much explanation of the different alien races,
Yeah,
which I think is great. And as a kid, then that's fodder for your imagination to
yeah.
go run wild. Then you go get on your bike and imagine all the stories that you can make with these different creatures. And yeah, so I think, like you said, just for the number of ideas, it's really great.
And I think number 12 is Avengers 291 to 293, which is the Marina saga, which is not so much the Marina saga as it is the dissolution of the Avengers' personal relationships. And maybe we should call it that from now on, because that's why it's up high here and
Hmm.
not if you call it the Marina saga, I think it goes down 5 or 6 slots. But if we include all of that interpersonal stuff for the actual
What's
Avengers,
happening
it's
between
it's
the scenes?
it's
Yeah.
much better. And then how to do a done in one well is Avengers 298 at number 13. I had this in my top 10, a little bit of a troll. Patrick had this maybe in his bottom 5. Yeah, it's probably in between. It just, to me, because the subsequent issues are just so dire, this is like
Oh,
a ray of fresh air.
it is a highlight compared to what's coming.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, number 14 is a missed opportunity. Keith Giffen and Todd McFarlane together for the doing the art. I personally would have liked Keith Giffen drawing it and Todd McFarlane inking it, the whole thing. But somehow we get less than the sum of its parts again. This invasion is now in a quagmire of 40 tie-in issues, with all of which are illustrated in exquisite boredom in the first 10 pages. So that's, I think, what is both good and bad about Invasion. We've just
Yes.
said it there. Number 15 is another missed opportunity, Avengers 299 to 300. I don't know that there's a single worse anniversary issue of any major Marvel character that is worse than 300, not because it is poorly crafted, but because the characterization of major figures like Steve Rogers and Reed Richards are so out of character. Um,
And the cowhead.
yeah, just Gilgamesh,
I'm
just
never gonna give up on the cowhead.
boredom personified. Number 16 is Invasion 3, which could have been its own thing unless we had the 15 introductory pages and the 40 tie-in issues. It had great moments, but how can you remember them when there's just 80 pages to get through? I think that sums that up, Patrick, right?
I agree.
Next one is the greatest gimmick comic of all time. Number 17 is Batman 315. So that's Kite Man. Just what a guy. What a guy.
I mean, why not just use a helicopter? Because he's Kite Man.
Yeah. Number 18 then is Ambush Bug 1 to 4, which might have leapt a few places had it been 1 to 2. Just diluting it down. So the example of dilution compared to not dilution or concentrating is the difference between the Legion of Substitute Heroes special and these ambush bug issues.
And
That's
also a big difference too is that the Legion of Substitute Special has the a different a cast of characters among whom you can use the different jokes, and they can have different reactions to the farcical situations that they're in. So you can have a straight man, you can have this, you can have that. When it all rests on Ambush Bug's shoulders, it's more difficult. And I understand that we have these cameo appearances by a police chief or a giant koala, but I think that's what makes it work for me. It's not just because of my love for the characters. The characters serve a purpose in being able to spread the jokes around and make the gags make sense a little bit more than just having this wisecracking guy that's got manic energy for 20 some pages.
which is
It just starts to wear on you a little bit.
the difference between a sitcom and an hour of stand-up by George Costanza.
I was going to say, you know who, and you talk about hate because I'm getting it today. Robin Williams did that to me. Like, yeah, sometimes he's brilliant, but like I say, a little goes a long way. And when you get into that repetitive shtick of just manic energy, for me, it's not my thing. So,
And speaking of making a lot of stuff out of a little idea, number 19 is 301 to 303, where we just have like a cosmic level being that's, 90 feet tall, just talking for what seems pages on end in the Nova Super Saga, which has some great cameos, but it's all just talking heads. And then the last but least here is 20, the stocking stuffer ambush bug special, which I would flip through just for the art and has a letter in it from Mark Wade.
but no need to read.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just look
So
at the pretty pictures.
so thanks again, Patrick, for
Yeah.
indulging us in your comic book wisdom, and we will catch up with everyone with a new episode of Tarnished Bronze very shortly, where we will start to use our catalog
Yeah,
of
I'm
of
really
of, of
excited about
comics.
that.
Yeah,
Like, and my question, the question every week will be, can Ambush Bug Stocking Stuffer be dethroned, or
yeah,
can Cooling Gaff be dethroned? And everything else. If you're first, you're last. If you're in the middle, who cares? But
yeah, yeah.
I think it'll be really interesting. Honestly, I mean, maybe nobody else will be interested, but I will be.
Yeah, and we are happy to read some terrible comics to really fill in numbers 21 through 50. So, with that, I guess you'd better get to your drawing boards and send us some ideas in the comments. So, like, follow, subscribe if you enjoy this, and Patrick and I will see you later.